All right, so where I can see it. So we've been covering some things in our study the last few weeks, and we've been working on things that dealing with things that come up or create positions in lives that cause feelings of being overwhelmed, dealing with things that overwhelm us, all these things. Now, tonight, as we've already worked on several letters before, and we'll look at those for just a second, but we've covered in our watch some things we need to watch and get ourselves better footed and prepared for when dealing with things that come and can be overwhelming. We've already covered watching our words, our attitudes, watching our temptations, our character. Now, what do you think is next?
Habits.
Habits?
Okay. Heart.
Your heart? Anybody else want to give me an H?
Honor.
I feel like this is the not the Wheel of Fortune. What's the one? What's the one where they put the letters on this? Vanna White. Is it a Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting it in the morning.
Jeopardy, I guess.
No, I'm getting the one in the morning. The Wheel of Fortunes, ain't that in the morning? Yeah.
Morning, noon, and night.
So, what letter? I've got habits. I got heart. Anybody else got one?
Heaven.
Okay. Any others?
Honorable.
Roger's rolling down the list.
Yeah, that's something also.
That's it. Okay. I figured this one would be a little harder to pick and come up with. I figured this one would make a little more challenge. Because now remember, we're watching. We're watching. We've watched our words, our attitudes, our temptations. We've watched our character. That was another one we had. And now we're watching another one that's striking the list. The final one in our watch study in this part that we're going to go to is actually not what any person predicted in the room, but we are going to look at some things that deals with watching your household. Watching your household is something we're going to look at for a few minutes tonight in something that we're going to study. Now, to set a little preface before we begin, we need to go ahead and look at some things and just think about the fact that out of all things, prioritized everything else that we look at in life, one of the things that we come to and we learn is that one of the most important things to people is their family. Many people would say that their family is worth more than anything else in the world, whether that be success, fame, fortune, whatever it is, that family in itself would be more, mean more, and be worth more than anything else in the world. And if you look at 2025, we're getting ready to go into 2026, but in 2025, if you look at it, family dynamics as a whole is very different for everybody. You've got some people that are in a home that has been married for many years. You've got some that are divorced and they live other places. You've got tons of family dynamics that are so different everywhere we go. But there are people that fall into our circle that we would claim to be part of what we would call our family or our household. Now, something that won't surprise you, but I did see this was interesting, but something that won't surprise us tonight is we're now starting to see that not only is time spent, but it's being spent specifically by generation. So this is the amount of time that each generation typically spends just on their phone. This don't include tablets, computers, TV. Just the phone. This is the amount of time that people spend on it based off of the generation. Now, interestingly, if you look at this, Gen Z and millennials, as it goes more up the ladder, it shortens. But these people are spending almost an 8-hour workday. each day just on their phone. Just on their phone. Almost right at 6-7 hours a day they're using their phone. Now, if we take that in relation to what we're going to look at tonight and we look at some things, they took a poll of a lot of people and they pulled a poll of numbers together from a lot of people that they wanted to know how often do Americans sit down at a table for a dinner? And it was asked with all members of your household. And this was the numbers that we came up with what we seen. And this is an average basis of percentiles. But we see the numbers are declining as we go down through basis of how many people sit down for a family dinner in their home. Now, if you look at that, and then you get to the next question that comes up of most parents wish that they were having family dinners more often. It was interesting how that the children says that they would like to have the family dinners more often than the parents. Anybody know why?
They don't got to cook.
That's it. I guarantee it. So we find that these people that wish that they had family dinner more often was pretty acclaiming numbers. Then we looked at seeing next who people spend their time with. Here's one for you. This is the one that was mapped from surveys of who they spend their time with. And if you notice what is the most amount of time per day a person spends alone. And some of that is by choice. Then we look at other periods of time where that people look at their family, their children, their partner, whatever other co-workers. They base this graph out of how much time they spend with each group of people in a day. And most people spend the most amount of time, they claim, to be alone. And the second most highest one was their children, and then they went on their spouse, the co-workers, so on and so forth. So we have gotten so busy in 2025 that now the busier you get, that is what seems to equal success to people. Have you ever heard them say, Lord, he's so busy, he won't hardly ever get caught up. He is so busy. He is always on the go. He's into something, doing something, working all the time. You hear that? That in our world in 2025 is seeming to equal success. And many people, now this is what I find interesting. Do you know that most people in 2025 complain about being time poor? And they lack the energy and hours that it takes to invest in other things because they are time poor. Okay. All these times that people spending and doing all these things each and every day to try to get things done and be successful and complete is now causing them to claim to be time poor. And they don't have the energy or time that it would take to invest into other things. So we go back to a particular part in the Bible tonight in the book of Nehemiah. And just prepare yourself because there's some questions in a moment. But in the Bible, cities were often built on a hill for a very specific strategic reason so that they could see any threat that approached them. If somebody was coming toward their city from being on a hill, they could see them. And thick walls with guards to stop those would surround the cities, offering further protection. So God called Nehemiah to lead the people of Israel into rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. And as they went about the tasks, he starts warning them to be very watchful and guard against any forces, opposing forces that may be coming to destroy the city and to harm their families. And he says that, therefore set I in the lower places behind the wall and on the higher places. I even set the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons, and your daughters and your wives and your houses. Later on down in this same chapter of Nehemiah 4 and verse 20, he says that in whatever place you're in, when you hear the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us, our God shall fight for us. If you will fight for your family, then God will fight for you. Now that sounds backwards if you think about it. If you will fight for your family, God will fight for you. So the first thing I'm going to ask us tonight as we're studying about watching our households is the question of, what do you value and cherish to have in your household? What do people value and cherish that they have in a household? I heard somebody mumble. Who said it? What'd you say? What do people value and cherish to have that they have in a household in today, 2025? We all think.
Material things.
Okay. What else? What do you think they value and cherish that they have in their home? Now, I'm asking this, I'm going to flip it here. I'm asking you to answer this question. What do you value and cherish that you have or have had in your household? Okay. Anything else? I hope this is not a quiet time because you don't know the answer to this. Because if you don't, you're in big trouble for what's ahead.
Bible.
Huh?
Bible.
Okay, that's one. What else? Several answers in this Christian group where they asked these questions were thankful for various things, whether it was family, their children, a home, their marriage, whatever that it come to be. Those were things that they valued and cherished to have in their home. Nehemiah said in 2 chapters back, in 2 and 20, he made the statement that there's no portion here. He's rebuilding the walls of the cities, but they're also rebuilding their families and their homes. And he's telling the rest that the city doesn't belong to you. Our homes does not belong to you. Think about the fact of where our first problem of keeping our own household problem is not being settled and committed. That's the first problem people have in 2025 in a home. People that I've counseled, I still counsel people, and a lot of people that I counsel and deal with has no commitment to anything. There is no settling. People are more, I don't know what to call it, but it's just craziness. It's everywhere. They're all over the place all the time. They're here, there, and everywhere. They can't answer me any question about where they're at in their life and where they're headed because they're just here. They're just here today. That's all they know is that they're here today. They have no commitment and they have not settled anything. Now, if you look at how the commitment plays, there's 3 ways that the Bible, or 3 things in order that the Bible recalls us to be committed to. Can anybody tell me what those 3 are in order?
Family.
Nope. That is one, but that's not the first one.
Home.
Nope.
God.
God's first. Then what?
Family.
Nope. Nope. There's 3 things in order. God's number 1. What's next? That a man would leave his parents and
Leave to adult life.
marriage, second. Family, third. Commitment in this order is specific. We're going to see that in the Bible in just a minute why. And remember, he says in verse 14 of Nehemiah 4, chapter 4, verse 14, he says that if you will fight for your house, your spouse, and your family, do you know how many people say, Lord, I'd hate to be raising a child in this day and time. Lord, I sure wouldn't want to be bringing up kids in this day and time. I hear that a lot. I hear tons of people saying, Lord, I'm so glad I'm not raising none right now in school. I'm glad they're not in school right now. I hear people say it all the time. But the interesting thing to me is this. that tells me a huge problem. Number one, I've identified this just over time of hearing that of people saying about raising children this day, because my Bible says that there will be no weapon formed against you. Is that not what the Bible says? There will be no weapon formed against you. It also tells you that the one that's built upon the rock, when the storms come and the winds blow and the waves rush in, it's still going to be standing. So God's promises in 1940, 50, and 60, when Robert and Roger became people in the world, in those years, the promises God gave have changed none. There was still people with problems in 1950 and 60 and 70 and 80, just like today. We have expanded our problems into many other issues, and addictions have went way out of proportion with the things that we have now that we did not have 30, 40, 50 years ago. But the problem that we have with the people right now about the fact is they do not see, number one, commitment. Number two, the problem is that they don't see the promises of God done telling them of no weapon formed against thee shall what? Prosper. It shall not prosper. So, one of the things I find about that, and the Bible's so interesting to me about some things, but Nehemiah, he told him to go lead them people and rebuild the wall and rebuild your homes. Okay. First thing that comes to my mind out of this when I've read this many times before is that God is already telling us that no matter what the devil has done to us, ourselves, our marriage, or our homes, no matter what he's done, God commands us to rebuild. Rebuild it. Get things back in line in the commitment order and get these things set. You know what's very interesting to me is if we went over there right now, you will find the wall that Nehemiah built back and the people. See, everything in our day and time now seems to be against the family and against the home. And that's when people decide at some point in time when they feel defeated that they decide there's nothing else worth fighting for, whether it be their family, their house, whatever there is. But let me ask you a question. In order for the devil to destroy the church, how does he do that? In order for the devil to destroy the church, he has to do something before that. What does he have to do?
Through us.
You're on the right track. But in order for the devil to destroy the church, what does he have to do first? You're on the right track.
Get you to believe it.
Huh? Yeah. He can't destroy the church until he destroys the home. See, once he destroys the home, then he can destroy the church. See, we're going back in this same order again of how this works. Now, I want you just to think about the fact of you look at what's worth fighting for. When you look at your family, your children, sons, daughters, grandchildren, whatever, you got to take into effect here of what is really worth fighting for. And I always say that it's always something to think about. If you don't really hear people say much about how much they're actually thankful for in their household, no matter what their household holds, you don't hear many people say much of anything about being thankful. Now, the happiest times of most people's lives and memories include who?
Family.
Their family. They lived with, raised their kids, went on vacation, the stories they can tell. Heck, one time Lois had Roger drive plumb to California, didn't he?
We did.
In the 70s? Yep.
It is.
I don't know if she just didn't believe that the land ended out there and there was water or what, but he took her plumb to it, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, happiest moments of our life is typically involved with family. And the devil, this is the one word you need to remember right here, because the devil's not picking parts of your home. He wants to take it all. Everything. John 10:10, as he comes for what? To steal, to kill, and you can't destroy the home if you don't take everything in it. There was a lawyer, no, let's back up. There was a college professor who had taught at a big, huge university for many years. Huge university for many years. And at the peak of his career on the board of directors, he gets up and tells the board that he's resigning. And they all look at him in shock because, I mean, he's really getting big. He's doing wonderful things in teaching and in the board of directors and so on. And so he explains to them that the reason he's quitting and going to the house is because his home or his wife is at home with Alzheimer's. And they even called him out in the meeting and told him, well, I don't know why you're doing that, why you're quitting everything at your most successful time in your career, why you're leaving this career and going home to your wife, because she does not even know your name. That's what they told him. She does not even know your name. Why leave? If she don't even know who you are, why are you leaving to go home? And his first answer to them is because she needs me. And he said this, he says, she may not know who I am, but I know what her name is, and I know who she is. It's going to cost us something. It's going to cost us something if we're committed. And if we're going to serve and we're going to see the Lord do mighty things in our homes, it's going to cost us. And that man has been some of the most favored college teaching in the nation. Best pass rates anybody has ever seen. He dropped it like a hot rock. And at the end of that class, when he came to that board meeting, he resigned. And that was his last day because he went home to take care of his wife. What in the vows of marriage, when you marry somebody, what is at the end of those vows?
Till death do you part.
Till death do us part. It's going to cost us something when we do this. But let's just take the Bible as a whole. We're talking about Nehemiah rebuilding the walls, and we're talking about watching your household and what it's going to take for us to keep our household. We're fighting for our family. Now, just think about this. Nehemiah tells them, you work on the wall with one hand, and what do you keep in the other?
Weapon.
And keep a weapon in the other hand while you're building this wall. I don't know how many of you all can work. We're going to take Roger and Robert out and let them build a house with one hand and see how it goes, because they're only allowed to use one. They're going to hold the sword out in the other. But and somebody stood a watch.
Yeah.
If you remember this in Nehemiah, somebody stood a watch, and the other ones were building with one hand and holding a weapon in the other. But I got to thinking about this when I really chewed on watching your household. And I got to thinking about this is not the only part in the Bible that teaches us the exact same thing. So I'm going to give you another one. Let me give you another one. And this is in Hebrews and 2 Peter chapter 2. Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became the heir of the righteousness which is by faith. And it even says in 2 Peter 2, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. You know what was interesting is that when he built the ark, before the gangplank could close and he could get on the ark, it is recorded right here that he was the eighth person to get in. How many people got on the ark? Eight. And the Bible records on purpose to us that Noah was the eighth person. Noah, the eighth person to get on the ark. And if you think about it, why would Noah want to be in his position 120 years building an ark? Why would he want to be the last one on the boat?
Sure, his family in.
To make sure all of them are on board. When the door closed, he knew they were in the ark. But until the door closed, what did he want to do? He wanted to make sure of it. He wanted to be sure that they were all on. This is the problem. I'm really more to blunt with people than maybe I should be, but I tell them all the time that they need to just go ahead and quit relying on their pastor. And I leave it right at that. And they look at me horribly like, oh no, what's he done? No, the problem is the pastor spends 2 hours at best a week with you. At best, the pastor spends 2 hours a week with you at church. Don't leave it up to them or somebody else to make sure that your house is on the ark. Don't leave it up to them. It's not their responsibility to watch your house. That is not on them. Their job is to shepherd the flock, but they're not babysitting you 24/7. But do you know how many people I hear all the time say, well, I'm going to let the Sunday school teachers and I'm going to let the pastor take care of that. Now, I'm not joking. That's a lot. I hear it a lot. I'm going to let the Sunday school teachers and the pastor take care of that. I got another easy example in Joshua 24. This is a very easy one. Y'all know this verse really good because he tells them, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." There's another example of where that you are to keep your household and to fight for your family. Biblical reference. This is another example of Joshua telling this straight in the Bible. All right, I'll give you another one while we're going. We can even say that Job had a J-O-B, a job. Job had a job. Here's the interesting part about this. How many children did Job have? I looked this up. Anybody know how many children Job had? Robert's counting if he can get that high. He's going. Anybody know how many he had? 10 children and a wife. But every day in the Bible, now listen, this is real. You go back and read Job chapter 1. Every day Job said, "I have a job." And every day for each child, he would offer up an offering. And the Bible is recorded. And he would name every child. And he did that, as the Bible records, continually, as this verse clearly says, fighting for his family. Here's what's interesting about this part of representation about fighting for your family, is that Job going before God and offering up a sacrifice on that altar, calling out every child, all 10 of them, one a day, every time going back, is saying, in other words, to say to fight for his family, is that, and I've heard this even preached before, I'm pleading the blood of Jesus over my child. I am pleading the blood of Jesus over my child. And he says, Job sinned and sanctified them and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." And he did this continually. Here's another effort of fighting for your family. Okay? One thing I'll find interesting if you see it is, do you realize how many children, I'm saying ages 13 to 17, are now in gangs? And that I'm going pretty local, Knoxville, different areas. You know how many places a child 13 to 17-year-old is in a gang? Do you know that that is what is raising that child? That's what's raising the child. And then for the rest of the homes in America, if that's not doing it, and crime's not doing it, and temptation's not doing it, Hollywood is. We are so glued into TV shows and reality shows and everything else that Hollywood is training the children. Hollywood is teaching the habits. Hollywood is telling. How many people learn right from wrong? If it ain't from their parents, who's it from? It's what they watch. It all comes from what they absorb somewhere. And so it's very interesting. Now, another easy example tonight in 2 Kings chapter 10, we've got Ahab and Jezebel. And they kind of got their godless in their ways and their lifestyles. But here's what's interesting about this. According to my Bible reference, Ahab and Jezebel had 70 children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on. There were 70 of them under Ahab and Jezebel, total, 70. When the army invaded, the Bible records that they cut all their heads off and put them in a basket and sent them to Jezreel. Let me give you what this is saying right here, if you study this out. Those who live a godless way and lifestyle, when the enemy comes, they're going to take everybody clean out. They're going to take out your whole family. When the devil comes for them, and the head is living godlessly, and the head is not living a godly lifestyle, and they're doing what they want, when the devil comes in the house, he'll take the head of every one of them and leave none. He wants them all. He takes all. Everything. We're back to the everything. The whole family in this very thing right here was blotted out. And if you study this, you'll find that Ahab and Jezebel was not living by the way God told them. Now, one more question. Who is Obed-Edom in the Bible? I love that. Go ahead and tell us, Hannah. Who is Obed-Edom in the Bible? Who is that? Obed-Edom. Didn't your English teacher teach you anything? Okay. Who is Obed-Edom in the Bible? It's interesting resemblance on this one. It's in there. I'm going to show you. But I love this resemblance. We've got Ahab and Jezebel who lived a godless life and lifestyle in godless ways. And when the enemy came, it cut all their heads off. All 70 children and grandchildren, it cut all their heads off and put them in a basket and sent them. Representing that when the head doesn't live by God's command, when the devil comes in, he takes it off. Now, let's flip to this very name here that you all are looking so scrambled over. And in 2 Samuel chapter 6, the Ark of the Covenant came to the house of Obed-Edom. 3 months, and the Lord blessed him and all his household. And it also mentions in 1 Chronicles 26:8 that all the sons of Obed-Edom, they and their sons and their brethren and able men for strength for the service, were 62 of Obed-Edom. What this tells us, it never mentions his wife. I don't think it tells anywhere I could find that it tells about his wife. But he moved the Ark of the Covenant into his house for 3 months. He moved the Ark into his house it stayed in his house for 3 months. And all of his family that were exposed to the Ark, all of them worked in the temple. It records that all of them in 1 Chronicles 26, it tells that all of them, 62, right there, 62 is that number, 62. 62, all of them worked.
72, minus 420.
Well, it'd still be 72. But all of them, still, all of them worked in the temple. Here's the representation we see this part. When you keep the Lord's commandments in the home and you uphold them, everybody that's exposed to that, that's the work they do. That's what they're born into. That's what they're raised into. And the Bible even shows us that. But there is one thing that we need to be careful of after we learn what godless ways bring into the home, what godly ways bring into the home. There's also something dangerous to those who try and who live the way they should and try to raise their family the way they should. We should beware of distractions that come our way. Because when you stop doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you find yourself pondering the things that have no value, there is nothing more important than what you are doing right now in your household. No matter what you've done before and what you have or haven't done before, there is nothing more important now. The Bible says that now is the acceptable time. And children need to be, think about this, children need to be where? Where do they need to be brought up in?
Home.
And
Church.
the house of God. If there is nobody fighting for their families, and I'll just give you an example because I seen this the other day. If your child gets up and says, "Are we going to church today?" there's a problem. I had a preacher friend of mine tell me that the other day. He told the family this in his church. He said he told the parents, if your child ever gets up on a Sunday morning knowing it's Sunday and looks at you and says, "Are we going to church today?" he said, "We've got a problem." Because if you're fighting for your family, there's no question about where we're going on Sunday. Did you all get a choice? Did you ever go to your dad and say, "Are we going to go to church today?" I know you're the pastor, but are we going to church today? Now, seriously, think about that, though. He told them, and he was right, that if they have to question whether or not we're going today, then we've got some problems. Taking them to church, how else we're going to be bringing them up under the ways of God, other than church, is going to be directly under our roofs. It's all going to be directly under our roofs. So we see all these things that come to play with watching our households. And there's another interesting one in, I heard this the other day, this guy said, Philemon. How do you all say that book of the Bible? Philemon? Pick one. Any of them you want to pick. But here's one interesting thing about the fact that, and to the church in what? Thy house. Do you have any church in your house? And the question that I have for that when I pull this verse is, if people come to your home, is God there? Is God present? Can they find him? He should have a place set in your house. He should have a place in your home, a place in your house that you honor God. He tells you to pray where? In the closet. Yeah. But that's not where devotion takes place. That's not where family time takes place. That's not where family prayer time takes place. See, the devil don't bring one little battle into a house to destroy it. He brings many problems, many chaotic issues into a house to divide and conquer. The wrong people, the wrong crowd, all these things cause people to want to stop fighting for their family. Interestingly, at the age of 15, there's a change happens in a child. Before the age of 15, a child will do whatever you tell them to. But at the age of 15 and above, they start doing what you show them. Many studies have proven this over the years, both in juvenile detention centers, psychological facilities, hospitals. There's tons of social work studies that proves that a child up about to the age of 15 will do what you tell them. But 15 and on, they're going to do what you've shown them. Now, when we get to that right there, the question, there was a famous man that owned a law office in New York, very prominent lawyer. New York Times had a writing on about this. He was an alcoholic, and every morning he went to the bar first and got him some alcohol, and he drank it, and then he went on to unlock the office and open up the law firm. Huge operation, big lawyer, well known in New York. One day he goes to the law office, he's going to open it up, and he goes to the bar that he always goes. And when he comes out of the bar after drinking the alcohol that morning and going toward the law office, he sees his little child, about 4 or 5 years old. He sees him coming up the sidewalk, up the street in New York, behind him. And the very first thing he sees is that little boy is stepping in every footprint that his dad made, all the way to the bar. He was taking his dad's steps from where he walked out the door to the snow and went all the way up the block and on the other side of the block to the bar. That little boy followed him and took his foot in every footstep. And the man, the news story talked about him telling years later about that he took his son back home and he put him back in the house. But he said from that point on was the conversion point that God showed him to never again make a footstep that led his child in that direction. That right there woke him up. That brings the question to all of us to say, where are our footprints leading? Once you're on your deathbed, where did the footprints lead? From the time you create to the time you leave this world, if somebody behind you is stepping in your footprints, where are they going? Multiple ways that society seeks to undermine biblical teaching. And that's what this study goes into showing, that 2/3 of Christians come to faith before the age of 18. Remember that for a second. 43 accept the Lord before the age of 12. But most 2/3 of Christians come to faith before they're 18 years of age, and 43% accept Christ before the age of 12. So that brings us to the answer of, what steps are we putting in front of them? What spiritual upbringing, as I've heard it said many times in church, and spiritual walls to protect what they're hearing and what they're seeing and what they're learning is everything. Because the devil's got to get them out of that. He's got to get them away from church as quickly as possible. Because at 12 years old, what happens? We start mingling in the mind. We start thinking things over. We start learning. We start aging. And as they do that, we find the footprints that we're leaving. Where are they leading people to? Where is people going? And the priority that we're doing that is where it comes up to. Can anybody tell me where this is at?
Well, well,
Y'all tell me. I know what it is. I want to know where it's at. Huh? I know I got Wyoming, South Dakota. Y'all figure it out. Let me know. What is this? What is this? Yeah, but what is it? What is this?
It's a carving of president.
It is, but what is it considered?
president,
It is the president, but what is it considered?
Monument?
A monument. Thank you. What is a monument? What is a monument?
something to remember.
That was that cake that helped you. Huh?
That's true.
Okay. As anything, a building, a statue, or a structure that commemorates a notable person or event. Do you know one monument that you will have?
Headstone.
A headstone. You'll have that one. There's a lot of things from a tomb to a headstone, different things that's placed. And there'll always sometimes be a little statement or a sentence. Some of the headstones, you see in the graveyard, it'll say something, over the grave. They'll have a little saying on the tombstone sometimes, or a picture or something else. But a monument is commemorative of a notable person or event. We got to look at that to say that how many people followed their parents' footsteps in some things they do now in their life. I hear a lot of people say, I do it that way because that's the way Dad did it. I do that because that's what Mom did all my life. That's what I know because that's what they've always done. See, that's footprints. That was footprints that you stepped in and followed as they led in the house. And in Nehemiah 4, going back, he did say one thing about how prayer works very well as a weapon. Because the first thing that the Israelites did in chapter 4, we read verses 13 and 14, back up to verse 9. And before facing the threats, they prayed and believed that God was able to protect them. Well, the Bible says in James chapter 5 that the prayers of a righteous man does what? Availeth much. And there are other references in the Bible about prayer being our weapon against many things that are going to come at our homes and our households. If you look at everything that children do under their parents that reflect nothing their parents ever did, that is no different than the parable of the prodigal son. He took his money and he ran off and he blowed it. And after eating with the hogs for a little while, God got his attention to bring him back. That means that Jeremiah, I think 37 tells us there's nothing too hard for the Lord. There's nothing too hard for God. But the problem we've got is we're not fighting. We're not standing our commitment up to keep God in the house, keep the marriage in line, keep the family going. We're not holding up the willingness to fight for the family. Here's something very interesting I thought about. I pulled it so you could see it. A study showed that children rarely embrace spiritual principles and practices that their parents fail to demonstrate in lifestyle. It is highly likely that my kids will not love Jesus any more than I do. They won't study their Bible any more than I do, or participate in the church or ministries any more than I do. I am the example that they observe. Footprints. They're seeing this trend of, as time goes on, Mom was so faithful to be in this group at the church, and I'm going to help support it because Mom did that, and I'm going to be in it too. I'm going to support it. Well, will you go with us? No, I can't. Mom didn't do that. I'm not going to do that. There's a lot of proving that the footprints, the footsteps that they're following is as far as they're willing to go. They're doing whatever. So if that person, and just like it says, won't love Jesus any more than I do, won't study their Bible any more than I do, or participate in church any more than I am, because the example they observed, that was enough. That was okay. That was good for Mom and Dad. We're seeing that very much so face itself out. This is something you need to always think about in your house, no matter where you live, who you live with, whatever, in your house, is that your faith is on display 24/7. They're watching how you live, what you say, what you do. Most behaviors are caught, they're not taught. Most behaviors are caught, they're not taught. What did Paul say in 1 Corinthians 11? Anybody know? There's a very specific verse he says in 1 Corinthians 11. I'm going to look it up for us.
Faith, substance of things hoped for,
Be ye followers of me,
as I am.
even as I also am of Christ. They're watching how we live every day. And the behaviors they're catching, they're not being taught the behaviors, they're catching them. How many people do you think right now in our lives sit down at a table and eat supper together 3 times a week at home? 3 times a week at home. How many families you think do that? They can't all even get into the house at one time. They're all out doing whatever they're doing, sports, school, all these things going on. People are so busy. That time right there, I don't have time and energy for that. I don't have time. There is a very simple song. Some of y'all might know this song. Anybody know this song? You've heard it? Okay. We need to reverse this and turn this song around and ask yourself, where are your feet going? Not little feet where you go, but where are we going? What are we fighting for? Because they're following us. They're following our footsteps. What are we fighting for? If we're not fighting to keep God in the house and His Spirit in the church, and we're not fighting to keep Him number one in everything we do, they're not going to. You can't expect them to do something they've never been shown. That's where that's coming from. How critical is it that the footprints we're leaving as we go to church, for example? A sign that you're not going to be a parent that you shouldn't be. And like I said, the footprints must be moving in the right direction. It's hard, but it'll save your family. And you think about it. Would you rather have them in the footsteps you're going to show them, or do you want the world to give them the path? Do you want the world to give them the footprints to walk in? That's always asking us what our footprints are giving to the next generation, because the Bible says where sin abounds, what else? Where sin abounds, grace much more about. We have the power over the world. And if we put it in line exactly like it's supposed to be, there is no reason for us to ever have our mindset that there's no turning it around. God proved all through time the structure of the home, watching your house, fighting for your family. But when we stop fighting, God says, if you fight for your family, I will fight for you. You stop. Why do you expect God to do anything? I've always asked that question. Why do people expect God to do things when they've done absolutely nothing? Nothing. People lead in various ways in their home life. They try to raise their children the best they know how. And no matter what comes out of that situation, what comes out of life, first thing that goes to them, we look at just in this situation, our responsibility, no matter what the outcome is we are giving the footprints to the next generation. Sunday night, I told you that you are what you eat. You are what you eat. Well, that's what's following you. That's what follows us. So the last thing in our watching tonight, and the priority to all of us, is that we are to watch our household and fight for our family. Anybody else got anything tonight?
Very interesting, very informative.
Noah done it. Joshua done it. Obadiah done it. Brought the ark right in his house. Kept it right there in the house for 3 months. And amazingly, all the ones that was exposed to it were found working in the 100% of them worked in the temple. Yet Ahab and Jezebel did their own thing, and all 70 of their heirs under them, their heads were delivered in a basket. It's no question to me sometimes why people have the problems that go on in their homes. It does not even come to my mind. A shocking thing, but you know what they want when it's all said and done, and when destruction has came, and when the turmoil has really set in the house, what do they want to do? What do they do?
I want to try to put it back together.
I'm gonna start coming to church.
Oh, yeah,
I'm gonna start coming to church.
but they don't.
And that's what the motive is. I'm gonna start coming to church, and they might come, they may not. You never know. Maybe. But see, the problem is all them footprints that's already behind them, they're still following. All of those in their family are still following those footprints, all the way up to the point they get in church. And if they do, there's footprints. The next generation is following us, continuing to follow us. And they'll follow all the way up to your monument in the graveyard. That's where the footprints will end, is where that stone is laid, in the graveyard, in the cemetery. But all the way up until that point, there's people following. They're catching the behavior. They're hearing and being shown. But most people will tell you in 2025 that if Robert and Roger tried to explain to you how to build a house, most people would say, you're just going to have to show me. I know you can draw it on paper, and that's fine, but you're just going to have to take me and show me how to do that. That's the problem with people being saved. You can read that Bible all day long. The real eyewitness that we get, the Spirit's actual true work from not only what the Word says, it's said all the time in Sunday school, the only Bible you'll read is what you show them. What you show them, your footprints. Anybody else got anything tonight? Anybody?